In a small, deserted alley, a man of humble height walked slowly, step by step. His name was Chien. He was a notorious gambler in the area, well known to everyone. It was unusual to see Chien out on the street late at night like this. It was simply because tonight, Chien had bad luck. His motorbike, which had been perfectly fine, suddenly stalled and wouldn't start no matter how many times he kicked it. When he pushed it to a repair shop, the shop was already closed. He pulled out his phone, called one of the two numbers printed on the old sign, and waited. However, when the two mechanics arrived and checked the bike, they were stumped. Chien had to leave his bike at the shop because they couldn't figure out why it wouldn't start. Chien, unsure of what else to do, pulled a few 200,000 VND bills from his pants pocket and, as if barking an order, told the mechanics, "Here, fix my bike for me. I'm leaving first. If there's any money left over after it's fixed, keep it for drinks. My treat. If it's not enough, let me know and I'll send more." The two mechanics were no strangers to Chien. His words were harsh, but they still smiled and accepted the money, happily escorting Chien out to the street. "Thank you so much, Mr. Chien. Just leave the bike here and we'll fix it. We'll call you as soon as it's done." Chien nodded curtly and left, saying, "Get inside and fix my bike as quickly as possible. I have an appointment tomorrow afternoon that I can't postpone. You understand, right?" "Yes, sir. Don't worry, we'll fix it as fast as we can." "Okay then." With that, Chien walked slowly from the repair shop back home. The road was dark. Every now and then, he would hear the faint sound of laughter from many people. But Chien just thought to himself that the laughter he heard was coming from a house nearby and wasn't directed at him. However, as he got closer to his house, the laughter grew clearer and nearer. Soon, the laughter was replaced by angry shouts and curses. At this moment, Chien, terrified, froze. He trembled as he turned his head to look behind him. Less than 5 meters away, there were dozens of people, old and young, all staring at him with bloodshot, hateful eyes. Chien screamed, turned, and tried to run, but suddenly his legs felt heavy. He wanted to run but couldn't. He looked down at his pale face, sweat pouring down, drained of all color. At his feet were two small children, their tiny, cold hands surprisingly strong as they gripped Chien's ankles. Chien couldn't take it anymore. He screamed in horror and woke up with a start. Chien's parents passed away when he was very young. His paternal uncle took him in, but as Chien grew older, he became increasingly difficult and rebellious. Many times, his uncle's family couldn't bear his behavior and considered sending him to an orphanage. Knowing this, Chien simply ran away. Chien was arrested for the first time when he was 19 years old. That day, Chien was caught at a gambling den during a major crime sweep by Than Xuyen District Police. After serving his sentence, Chien didn't give up his old ways. Whenever he saw a big gambling den, he'd rush in like a moth to a flame. The people Chien saw tonight were all those he had wronged. They had followed him to seek revenge. Chien was the mastermind behind a murder committed over 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Big Brother helped me out, one of Chien's henchmen said, placing an uncapped bottle of beer in front of him. Chien took it, chugged it, then slammed it forcefully onto the table. "Damn it, this is frustrating," Chien spat. "I don't believe I can't deal with that dog's family." The family Chien was referring to was that of Mr. Cuong, one of Chien's debtors. Besides gambling, Chien had connected with several gangs after his release from prison. This allowed him to loan money at exorbitant interest rates, having met various Big Brothers in jail who introduced him to their networks. Despite his small stature, Chien possessed a ruthless streak that struck fear into many. A month ago, Mr. Cuong's business ran into trouble. An acquaintance introduced him to Chien, and he borrowed a large sum of money, hoping to turn his fortunes around. That day, Chien was sleeping with his young mistress when he was bothered by a knock at the door. He sat up annoyed and barked, "Who is it? It's late. What are you bothering me now?" The person outside spoke softly, "Brother Chien, it's me, Tuan. I brought a friend who needs your help." Chien understood. He told his mistress to get dressed while he walked to open the door. He scrutinized the two men outside, then nodded. "Come in. So what brings you here, Tuan?" Tuan replied, "Brother Chien, this is Mr. Cuong. His business has been losing money and he's in a difficult situation. We'd like you to lend him some money for capital. Don't worry, brother, we're trustworthy. We wouldn't dare betray you." Chien stood up, fetched 2 bottles of beer from the fridge, and placed them on the table. "Lending isn't hard, but my interest rates are high. Very high. I charge 15 million for every 10 million borrowed. If you can handle that, I'll lend you the money. Otherwise, I can't help." Mr. Cuong heard Chien's exorbitant interest rate, which was much higher than anywhere else, and he felt disheartened, sighing. He was about to refuse, but Tuan stopped him with a discreet, reproving glance. Yes, brother, we hope you can help us resolve this difficult matter. We'll be very grateful to you, Brother Chien. Chien popped open the beer bottles and handed one to each man. All right, it's settled then. Now you two drink up. After you finish this beer, I'll go get the money for this guy to borrow immediately. But there's one condition. Tuan asked. What is it, Brother Chien? Chien said. Honestly, I don't trust your brother much, so you'll be the one to sign for the loan. That way, I'll feel more at ease. After saying that, Chien went inside to get the money and handed it to them. After leaving Chien's house, Mr. Cuong looked at the money in his bag and sighed, frustrated. He said to Tuan, I'm afraid borrowing money from this Chien guy this time is a mistake. The interest is too high. The places I asked before only charged 6 or 7 million per 10 million. This guy charges 15 million. Why didn't you let me refuse? It would have been better than having to bear such a high, crushing debt now. Tuan laughed and said, Brother, this is for business, not for spending. You're borrowing to do business, so don't worry about the immediate future. Just take this money and sort out your problems. After that, we'll figure out the next steps. Besides, I'm the one who signed for the loan, so you don't have to worry. Your wife won't know you borrowed money from a loan shark. Mr. Cuong nodded, finding his brother's words logical. The most important thing for him now was to solve his immediate problems. As for Chien's debt, he would deal with it later or wait for Chien to finish his business. 2 months after lending money to Mr. Cuong, Chien was eating with some of his henchmen at home when suddenly, one of them rushed in, out of breath, to deliver shocking news to Chien, making him drop his chopsticks on the table in utter surprise. Boss, Tuan, the one who brought Cuong to borrow money from you last time, he's dead, boss. Chien's mouth hung open, speechless. He leaned back in his chair, eyes unfocused, staring up at the ceiling. He realized that day, when he lent money to Mr. Cuong, Chien had made Tuan sign as the guarantor on the debt note. Now, Mr. Cuong was the borrower, but Tuan was the one whose name was on the debt. If Tuan was dead, Mr. Cuong was, of course, no longer involved or connected to the debt on paper between Chien and Tuan. Brother Chien, what do we do now, brother? Why didn't you make Cuong sign the debt note too and only let Tuan sign it? Damn it, how was I supposed to know Tuan was going to die? If I knew he was going to die, I would have made Cuong sign it. Damn it, I made a mistake. Man proposes, God disposes, indeed. Just as Mr. Cuong had predicted, after Tuan's funeral, Chien and 2 of his henchmen went to Mr. Cuong's office. As soon as he sat down, Chien got straight to the point. Cuong, you and I both know this. That day, when you came to borrow money from me, I made Tuan sign the debt note to secure the loan. Now that he's dead, I hope you'll still honor your promise to repay the money to me. Mr. Cuong smirked. Brother Chien, what you're saying isn't right. That day, I said I'd sign the debt note, but you said I wasn't trustworthy and made Tuan sign it instead. So if I don't pay, Tuan is the one responsible. Now Tuan is the one who borrowed the money. I only borrowed from him. I didn't borrow from you, brother. You understand, right? Chien was boiling with rage, feeling like the biggest idiot among idiots. He swallowed his anger and said, So are you going to pay me now? Of course, if you borrow, you have to repay, but I won't pay you. I'll pay Tuan. Are you kidding me? Tuan's dead. How are you going to pay him? Mr. Cuong pushed a glass of water towards Chien, his voice light. Brother, don't worry. Tuan just died, his grave is still fresh. I will definitely arrange to pay his wife. All you need to do is go to Tuan's house, meet his wife, and collect the money. It's that simple. What about the interest? Interest? No, you don't understand. When Tuan was still alive, I already owed him interest. But he owed me money, so I paid him interest. Now that he's dead, what interest are we talking about? I will repay the principal to Tuan's wife. You can go there and collect the principal. Surely you're not going to demand money from a dead person, Brother Chien? Chien's face turned pale. He never expected that past mistake to lead to such a deadlock now. So, Tuan's dead, you should just get the principal back. It's better than losing everything, Chien mumbled. So, when will I receive the principal? Mr. Cuong replied nonchalantly. You don't need to worry about that, Brother Chien. On the agreed date between me and Tuan, I will bring the full amount to repay his wife. She will then inform you. Chien left, feeling relieved. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how cunning Cuong was. He never expected to be in such an impossible situation. One of the 3 henchmen following Chien spoke up to comfort him. Boss, what that guy said means he has no intention of paying. It's just that back then, due to carelessness, he didn't make Cuong sign the debt note. Now that guy is turning the tables. Chien slapped his forehead hard, muttering angrily, Damn it, it's all my own stupidity. Once I get the principal back, I'm going to teach that Cuong a lesson he'll never forget for daring to betray me. Chien patiently awaited the day he had been looking forward to. Tuan's wife, Ms. Thoa, called him to come to her house to collect the principal. Although he was annoyed about not receiving a single penny of interest for such a long time, Chien maintained a calm demeanor in front of the woman. After receiving the money from Ms. Thoa's hand, Chien said, "Your husband is gone now. Consider the interest on this debt forgiven, out of respect for Tuan and our long acquaintance. If you ever have any difficulties, come to me, Chien. As Tuan's brother, I'll lend you money without a single cent of interest." After saying that, he took the money and stood up to leave. As he reached the door, he stopped and said to his two henchmen, "Damn that dog Cuong. If I don't deal with him, I'm not Chien anymore." Chien began to devise a plan for Cuong in his head. Not only Mr. Cuong himself, but his entire family would suffer the consequences, because in Chien's mind, he wanted Cuong's whole family to pay for his actions. One evening, Chien was sitting in a private room at a karaoke bar he frequented. Just as he entered the room, a trusted henchman and a young girl approached him. The henchman whispered something in Chien's ear. "Boss, everything's ready. We're just waiting for your command to execute." Chien chuckled, then turned to the pretty 18-year-old girl sitting beside him, whispered something in her ear, and slipped a 500,000 VND bill into her cleavage. The girl smiled brightly, stood up, and left the room. The other girls, who had also received money, stood up and left. Only Chien and his two henchmen remained in the room. Chien then said, annoyed, "Damn it. This time, act fast and decisively. Leave absolutely no trace." "Don't worry, boss. When your two brothers act, it's always a success. Just wait for good news, brother." Chien nodded, threw each of them a wad of 500,000 VND bills, and said, "Once the job is done, you two immediately go to Cambodia. Cuong there will pick you up and arrange your food and lodging." The two henchmen, beaming with joy after receiving the money from Chien, quickly left the karaoke bar with him and went home. The young girl who had been sitting next to Chien earlier had just gotten off a motorbike taxi. The driver, after receiving money from the girl, stood there watching her with a troubled, wistful look. He seemed about to say something, but seeing Chien looking at him, he sighed sadly, turned his bike around, and sped off. Chien opened the car door and embraced the girl, who fell into his arms, passionate and intoxicating. Seeing this, the two henchmen exchanged knowing glances and left. They returned to their rented room, grabbed 2 pistols, and drove straight towards Mr. Cuong's house. About 10 meters from Mr. Cuong's house, the motorbike with no license plate stopped. They observed the deserted street. It was the opportune moment. One henchman pulled out 2 pistols, gave one to the other, put on masks, and then pressed the doorbell. Inside, Mr. Cuong's maid was cleaning when the doorbell rang. She stopped and asked Mr. Cuong, who was reading in the living room, "Master, someone's at the door." He replied, "Go see who it is. If they ask for me, tell them I'm asleep. If there's something urgent, come back and tell me." "Yes, master." The maid walked to open the door. As soon as she opened it, a masked man pointed a gun at her face, making her turn utterly pale with fear. "Quiet, not another word, or I'll blow your brains out." The maid's eyes welled up with tears. She nodded, but before she could say anything, the gunman continued, "Get out, go back to your hometown. If the police or anyone else asks later, say you don't know anything. If you don't, we'll track you down and take care of your whole family." Trembling, the maid pleaded, "Please, young masters, don't harm my mistress and her children. My mistress is a good person and the 2 little ones are innocent. Shut up, or I'll blow your brains out." The maid's face went white, and she ran towards the end of the street, where a young man on a motorbike taxi was waiting for a customer. She rushed to him, handed him some money, and urgently told him to take her to the bus station. Amidst his confused gaze, gunshots rang out, followed by the sound of a motorbike speeding away. As neighbors turned on their lights and opened their doors, the 2 gunmen had already fled. Police were alerted by residents and arrived at the scene. Mr. Cuong's entire family had been killed. No one survived. Chien, in his luxurious villa with his mistress, lay on the bed, exhausted, when his phone rang. He answered, and a familiar voice came from the other end. "It's done, boss." "Good, you 2 leave now." "Okay, boss, see you later, boss." Chien hung up, removed the SIM card, and threw the phone to the beautiful young girl next to him. "Here's that phone, my love. It's all yours now." The girl, holding the phone Chien gave her, was delighted. She kissed Chien once more before getting out of bed and going to the bathroom. For a long time after the tragic death of Mr. Cuong's family, residents remained shaken and haunted by the ruthless acts of the perpetrators known as assassins. After the death of Mr. Cuong's family, Chien didn't feel comfortable. On the contrary, he felt uneasy and disturbed. His mind was plagued. "What's wrong, boss?" one of his henchmen asked Chien, who was sitting there with a troubled look. Chien replied, "Damn it, I don't know why, but I feel very uneasy this time." "Are you worried that Hiu and Engia might get caught, boss?" "Yes, I'm worried about that." "You're overthinking it, boss. They're in Cambodia with the money you gave them. There's someone there to take care of everything for them. What is there to worry about? If you're still uneasy, why don't you send someone there to make Hiu and Engia disappear forever?" Chien had thought of this but couldn't bring himself to do it to his loyal henchmen. In this society, it was hard to find such faithful subordinates. So Chien shook his head and said, "No, we can't do that. Maybe I'm just overthinking it." "You're right, boss. Or maybe you should go somewhere to relax for a while to clear your head." Chien realized there was no better way to regain his peace of mind than to go somewhere for a while, so he took his henchman's advice. The next day, Chien took the 18-year-old girl and booked 2 tickets to Ho Chi Minh City for a 30-day vacation, hoping that after the trip, he would feel completely at ease. However, an unexpected event occurred on the 12th day of Chien's trip. That day, Chien was lying there while the girl was giving him a massage when his phone rang. He didn't answer but signaled to the girl with his eyes. "Hello, who is it? Brother Chien just came back and is still drunk, so he's sleeping. Oh, he's awake now. Let me tell him." "Yes, hello, sir." The girl hung up and put the phone back in its place. Chien immediately asked, "Who called? Is something bad happening?" "Brother Tuan just called. He wants to inform you that both of your guys in Cambodia are dead." "What? How did they die?" Brother Tuan said his contact in Cambodia reported that both of them died by suicide. They hanged themselves. "What?" Chien sat up, told the girl to leave the room, and then called his henchman Tuan. "Tuan, did you say they committed suicide? I gave them so much money, and they had people there to take care of everything from A to Z. Why would they commit suicide?" "You need to go there yourself and investigate thoroughly. I feel like there's something wrong with their deaths. Don't worry, boss. I'll let you know if I find anything." Chien hung up, muttering, "Damn it, this is weird. Why would they commit suicide when everything was going well? It's really hard to understand." A week later, the henchmen sent to Cambodia to investigate the cause of death that led to the 2 assassins' suicides reported back. "How is it, brother?" The henchman's voice was heavy. "Let me tell you everything when I get back to Vietnam." But before the 2 of them committed suicide, they both sought out an old sorcerer in Cambodia to perform some ritual. "We don't know what it was, but in the end, it's unclear if the ritual worked or not. But both of them seemed completely insane." The guys here said they looked around, but there was no one else there. "Damn it, maybe they killed too many people this time and it scared them. You come back. There's something important we need to do." Chien hung up the phone and sat lost in thought, staring at the overgrown yard in front of him. The more he thought about his 2 trusted henchmen dying in Cambodia, the more he felt that their deaths were not normal. There must be some mystery he didn't know about. Finding a sorcerer to perform an exorcism? That's strange. These 2 never believed in superstitions before. Why suddenly now? 3 days later, Chien and some of his henchmen were sitting in a small house on the outskirts of Hanoi. This house was bought by Chien with the intention of settling down there in his old age. They sat in a circle around a table laden with delicious food. "Today, I called you all here to discuss the deaths of Hiu and Engia. I suspect they weren't suicides, but rather murders." "No, brother. The Cambodian police investigated the scene very carefully. They couldn't have been murdered." Hiu's suicide was clear. He cut open his stomach with a knife, his intestines spilled out, and he was kneeling with his head bowed to the ground. Engia hanged himself, his eyes wide open, staring straight ahead. It couldn't be anything else. Chien remained silent. If they weren't murdered, then it could only be suicide. But they had fled to a foreign country, had plenty of money, and a proper place to stay. What could they have been worrying about? Yet, they still committed suicide. This is something Chien had never seen before in his life. Suddenly, a thought popped into Chien's head. Could it be that Cuong's family came back to haunt them, terrifying the 2 of them into suicide? With that thought, Chien looked up and said to his henchmen, "Do you think they were haunted so badly that they committed suicide?" The group looked at each other in silence. Chien, who had always been fearless, was now afraid of ghosts. While the henchmen remained silent, Chien continued, "I'm sure Hiu and Engia were so scared that they committed suicide. There's no way they would have been afraid of anything else. I believe only ghosts could have scared them so much that they peed their pants. That's why both of them sought out a sorcerer before they died. So, when will their bodies be repatriated? Soon enough. The person there will send the bodies back as soon as the Cambodian police release them. Chien drained his glass of wine and sighed. It's true, my whole life, only these two were the most loyal. Now that they're dead, I truly regret it. Chien drank until he was soft, almost unconscious. His henchmen helped him into a car and drove him back to Hanoi. Chien slept until midnight, then woke up. He heard sounds from downstairs. Sitting on the bed, Chien strained to listen. There was no response. Still dizzy, he eventually got up and opened the door. It was so dark outside that Chien couldn't see anything and had to grope his way forward. Suddenly, Chien bumped into someone standing very close to him, so close that if Chien had taken another step, he would have collided with them. "Than, Engia, what are you doing here?" But the other person remained still and then spoke, startling Chien. "I am Cuong. Do you remember how you killed my entire family?" From that night onward, after encountering Cuong's spirit, Chien was clearly haunted. His henchmen were very worried about Chien and urged him to rest to regain his spirits. Chien followed their advice and returned to his old house in the countryside, hoping to get his mental state back to normal. However, it wasn't as he had hoped. Even after returning, the spirits of Cuong and his family constantly haunted Chien, never leaving him. Chien could no longer focus on his business. He handed over all his work to his subordinates. But unfortunately, during several police investigations, Chien's henchmen were successively arrested. Chien's years of business had dwindled, and now he only had a house in the city and the house he was currently living in. "Boss, what do we do now? We should disband. Don't contact me anymore." Before his henchmen could say more, Chien hung up. He no longer had the mental capacity for his subordinates. Nor did he care about the assets he had acquired through illegal means. What Chien cared about now was finding a way to stop Cuong's family's spirits from clinging to him. For over 3 years since the Mr. Cuong family murder case was closed due to the inability to find the perpetrators, Chien still hadn't been caught because the actual murderers, his 2 henchmen, were also long dead. Until tonight, on his way home, Chien saw Cuong and his family appear again, so clearly that he fainted. When Chien regained consciousness, he found himself lying in a hospital bed. It was his neighbor, Mr. Bin, who had rushed him to the hospital. When Chien woke up, Mr. Bin asked, "Are you too tired, young man? Why did you faint on your way home? You're lucky you ran into me, you know? Otherwise, you would have met your ancestors much earlier." Chien sat up abruptly, his trembling hands clutching Mr. Bin's shirt as if begging for help. He stammered, "Uncle Bin, I'm so scared. I just saw a ghost, Uncle. I saw a ghost, Uncle." "All right, calm down now. Where's the ghost that you're so panicked? Look around this room. Is there any ghost?" Chien then calmed down. He looked around the hospital room, his gaze settling on Mr. Bin's kind face. "Thank you for being here, Uncle." Mr. Bin then handed Chien a bottle of water and said, "I don't know much about your past, young man, but what you're experiencing today is the consequence of what you did in the past. I think you should calmly reflect on what wrongdoings you committed in the past. Only then can you return to normal. I hope you'll listen to my advice." After hearing Mr. Bin's words, Chien sat stunned, unable to say anything more. Mr. Bin silently sighed, turned, and left the hospital room. Chien was left alone in the room, next to another patient who was sleeping with his back to Chien. As Chien watched, the other person suddenly turned their face, and Chien saw that it was Mr. Cuong, who had been murdered by Chien's henchmen. He screamed and rushed out of the hospital room. The nurses and doctors outside saw this and rushed to Chien. His mind was in a state of panic. They restrained Chien on the hospital bed and gave him a sedative. Only then did Chien gradually calm down and fall into a deep sleep, thanks to the medication. That day, Mr. Bin returned to the hospital to visit Chien, who was still asleep. The doctor called Mr. Bin to discuss Chien's condition and asked him to inform Chien's family to complete the hospitalization procedures. Mr. Bin then told the doctor, "Chien has no relatives, doctor. Can I register him for hospitalization? I'm his neighbor." The doctor looked at Mr. Bin and nodded. He stood up and thanked him, then went to the office. After completing the admission procedures and paying Chien's hospital fees, he returned to the ward and saw that Chien was awake. Chien was sitting there, looking at the male patient in the bed next to him with frightened eyes. The male patient, feeling uncomfortable with Chien staring at him like that, left the bed and went outside as Mr. Bin walked into the room. Mr. Bin sat on the male patient's bed and began to speak to Chien. "I just completed the procedures and paid your hospital fees, young man." You can rest assured and stay in the hospital for treatment until you recover, then go home. Thank you, uncle. When I'm discharged, I will repay your hospital fees. The money isn't important. It's important that you recover. You're my neighbor, almost like family to me. You've helped me a lot, so repaying you is simply what I should do. During Chien's hospital stay, Mr. Bin was the one who frequently visited and took care of him, right up until the day he was discharged. On the day of his discharge, Chien called Mr. Bin, telling him not to come because he could go home by himself. Upon arriving home, the place Chien now lived in was nothing short of a pigsty. Objects were strewn about, cobwebs covered every corner, and thick dust lay on the altar, which had not been lit with incense for a long time, adding to the gloomy atmosphere of the house. When Mr. Bin came over, he saw Chien sitting on his chair, staring blankly, lost in thought. Seeing this, Mr. Bin asked, "How are you feeling, young man?" "I'm fine, thank you, uncle, for taking care of me during my time in the hospital." Chien then stood up, went to the cabinet, took out a wad of money he still had, returned to the table, counted out half the amount, and offered it to Mr. Bin. "Here's some money for you, uncle, please accept it." Mr. Bin only took half the money Chien offered, returning the rest to him. "Don't gamble anymore, young man. You gain little and lose much. This amount of money isn't small. You should use it for legitimate business or to rebuild your life before it's too late, Chien." Chien nodded, his voice filled with sincere remorse. "I truly know, uncle. This time I will quit gambling for good. I will rectify all the mistakes of my past." Mr. Bin sighed. "I hope you can do that, young man. You should also offer incense to your parents regularly. You can't leave their altar cold like that." Chien nodded, stood up on a high chair, took down the framed photos of his parents along with the incense holder, and cleaned the altar. As he carefully placed his parents' photos back in their original position, Chien lit incense and then suddenly felt a pang of guilt. From the day he went back to his uncle's house to retrieve his parents' photos until now, he had neglected offering them incense. He clasped his hands in front of the altar. Chien suddenly flinched when he saw his parents' eyes in the photos looking at him with deep resentment. Chien quickly rubbed his eyes, but now he saw nothing. Mr. Bin, noticing Chien's strange behavior, asked, "What's wrong, young man? Why are you suddenly looking so confused?" "I saw my parents in the photos. They looked at me with angry eyes." Parents are always the ones who love their children the most, so you should believe that no matter what wrong you've done, your parents will always be forgiving and bless you. "I understand. Thank you, uncle, for always being there for me, caring for me, and encouraging me." At that moment, Mr. Bin's daughter, Thoa, came to call him home, saying they had guests. Mr. Bin stood up and told Chien, "Think carefully about what's next. I believe you can stand on your own 2 feet. Remember my words, no matter what, you must regularly offer incense to your parents and ask for their protection. Only then can you find peace." On the way home, Mr. Bin's daughter, Thoa, asked him, "Dad, why do you always stay close to that Chien guy? He's a bad person. Everyone in this area knows his notorious past, and they all avoid him, but you keep getting involved with him." Mr. Bin sighed, hearing his daughter's words. "Don't say that. Whatever Chien used to be, I believe from now on he will change and become a decent person. You can believe it, but I don't. That guy will never change for the better. Just watch, Dad. One day, if you get too close to him, he'll take all the money from our house to gamble it away." Chien went out to buy groceries to set up an altar and light incense. He believed that seeing his parents' angry eyes in the photos was real, not just his imagination. Chien knew his past actions were regrettable. That year, he sent 2 henchmen to kill Mr. Cuong's family, and now he was being haunted by those vengeful spirits. Every night, Chien dreamed of Mr. Cuong and his family appearing, standing around his bed. He wanted to scream but couldn't. He lay stiff on the bed like a corpse until morning when he would return to normal. On a peaceful day, people saw Chien visit his parents' graves in the cemetery. He sat by the 2 graves, talking to his parents for a long time before leaving. That was also the last time the villagers saw Chien visit his parents. After visiting his parents' graves, Chien went out to the highway, found a passenger bus, and traveled to visit Mr. Cuong's family's graves. He had convinced a relative of Mr. Cuong's family with money to briefly accompany him to the graves. The relative of Mr. Cuong's family couldn't have imagined that the man he was leading to his cousin's grave was the very mastermind behind the murder of Mr. Cuong's family years ago. Chien silently followed the man, walking deeper into the cemetery. They stopped at a row of about 50 graves. Chien stood before the photos attached to the tombstones, his heart pounding, his breath catching. He imagined that at this very moment, those vengeful spirits were appearing, surrounding him, staring at him with hateful eyes. "You go back first. I want to stay here for a while. Uncle Bin brought me to your family's graves. No problem, I'll go first, you stay here." After the relative left, Chien knelt down, lit incense stick by stick, and placed them into each grave. He clasped his hands and mumbled, "I have wronged you all. I know I was wrong. I will atone. Please, don't come back to haunt me anymore." The eyes in the photos on the tombstones seemed to stare directly at Chien. The gloomy atmosphere covering the entire cemetery that day made Chien feel a chill down his spine. Even though he had prepared himself mentally to stand before the graves of the innocent victims, Chien now knew fear, deep fear. Each time Mr. Cuong and his family appeared, Chien knew he had committed a crime that, even if he successfully hid it for the rest of his life and escaped justice in this world, he could never escape the justice of his own conscience. Chien clasped his hands in prayer, then turned and left. He returned home with a lighter heart. Mr. Bin brought food to Chien. Seeing Chien in better spirits today, he said, "Where have you been, young man? We made some dishes at home today, so I brought them over for us to eat together." "You're too kind to me, uncle," Chien insisted. "Please sit down at the table, uncle, and let's eat together." Mr. Bin nodded and waited for Chien to prepare. A moment later, Chien returned with a tray of food, a bottle of wine, and 2 glasses. "Since we're eating like this, we must have some wine, uncle. This wine is delicious. I just got some, so I brought it out to share with you." "Then let's drink until we drop today." The meal proceeded in a joyful atmosphere. After the meal, both men were quite drunk. Mr. Bin stood up to leave. Just after Mr. Bin left, someone came to Chien's house. This person was one of Chien's former henchmen. Seeing his henchman, Chien, half awake, half drunk, asked, "Why are you here? What do you want?" "I came to visit you, big brother. How are you doing? Let's have a few drinks together." His henchman looked at Chien and said, "It's been a long time, hasn't it? How are you guys doing now? Are you well? A few of us are living together now. Do you want to work with us again?" "Hey, big brother, don't even bother asking. I thought you had no problems during that time. Why do you want to go back to the old ways now? I don't want to relive those old days anymore. You guys have changed, haven't you? After all these years following me, you wouldn't just leave me now that you're in a difficult situation, would you?" Chien sighed, stood up, went inside, took out all the money he had hidden in a cabinet, and placed it in front of his henchmen. "Take this money and share it among yourselves. Tell them that from now on, I am no longer anyone's boss. Consider Chien dead." "How can you say that, brother Chien? I won't take this money. You know we only want you, not the money." "My decision is made. Take the money and start a new life. Don't come looking for me anymore." Seeing Chien's resolve, the henchman took the money and stayed at Chien's house for one night, leaving the next morning. The very next day, Chien visited the graves of his 2 henchmen who had committed suicide in Cambodia. Everyone thought they had died of fear and committed suicide, but Chien understood that they had been tormented by vengeful spirits, just as he was being haunted by Mr. Cuong and his family. He poured wine, arranged offerings, and spent a long time at their graves before leaving. After visiting all the graves of his relatives, friends, and even those he had wronged, Chien returned home and put his current house up for sale. Mr. Bin's daughter, Thoa, was among those who disliked, even openly despised Chien, but the news of him selling his house caught her attention. One evening, Thoa told her father, "Dad, you should tell Chien to sell his house." "Oh, he's already planning to sell it. Why are you asking? Are you thinking of buying it?" Thoa laughed and replied, "Actually, I don't like Chien at all. But business is business, and a house is different, Dad. This land is in an area where prices are expected to rise soon. Please help me go over there and ask him to sell it to me. Just say that you want to buy it, and he'll surely sell it cheaper. If we buy it now and the land price goes up later, we'll make a huge profit, Dad." Mr. Bin looked at his daughter, sighing. This daughter of his was over 30 and still hadn't married. He knew she was picky, but at that age, if she didn't marry soon, she'd regret it. Mr. Bin, swayed by his daughter's persistent urging, went to see Chien on a drizzly afternoon. The weather was cool and pleasant despite the rain. In front of Chien's house, the "For Sale" sign had been blown down by the wind. The rain had soaked the paper, rendering it unusable. Mr. Bin picked up the "For Sale" sign and threw it in the trash, then returned to Chien's door. "Chien, are you home, Chien? I have something to tell you." Mr. Bin called out several times, but there was no response from Chien. Not only that, but there was an unusual silence. Mr. Bin reached out and opened the slightly ajar door. Chien, what are you doing in the house? Why don't you answer? Are you asleep? Still no response. Mr. Bin continued to walk slowly into the house. The lights weren't on, so the inside of the house was quite dark. Fumbling in the darkness, Mr. Bin found the light switch on the wall and flicked it on. The house lit up, and he was horrified by what he saw. The furniture in the house was scattered everywhere. Most horrifying of all, on the ceiling, there was a lot of blood, so much blood. It took Mr. Bin 5 minutes to regain his composure. He followed the trail of blood on the floor upstairs. When he reached the second floor, the door to the second room was ajar. Mr. Bin was about to call out, "Chien," when he stepped inside the room. Just a few seconds later, the image of Chien, dead and stiff in a pool of blood, slammed into his eyes, terrifying Mr. Bin. The news of Chien's murder caused a stir in the neighborhood. The police invited Mr. Bin to assist with the investigation and asked him to write a statement detailing everything from the moment he knocked on Chien's door until he discovered Chien's body upstairs. The police began to investigate Chien's mysterious death. At the time Chien was murdered, it was drizzling, so there were few people around. No one saw or noticed any strangers entering Chien's house at that time. Chien's body was repatriated, and Mr. Bin was the one who handled his funeral. Chien's funeral lasted 2 days. No one came to pay their respects. Everyone found this strange because when Chien was alive, he was a powerful gang leader with countless henchmen. Yet when he died, not a single person came. It just goes to show how fickle people's hearts can be. On the day Chien was buried in his hometown, Mr. Bin and a few workers buried Chien next to his parents' 2 graves. Chien had once told Mr. Bin about his parents' burial place, so Mr. Bin knew to bring him there. This way, Chien's wish to be reunited with his family was fulfilled. One day, Mr. Bin was talking to a police officer who was investigating the case. Mr. Bin said, "Chien, when he was alive, was very good to me. I don't care about his past, that he was in prison and what crimes he committed. I only care that he promised me that he would quit gambling and stop doing illegal things. I hoped for him." "So, uncle, did you ever see Chien meet anyone at home?" "Yes, sometimes someone would come to see him, a henchman of his," he said. "He told me that Chien gave that guy a lot of money, and that guy even stayed at Chien's house for one night and left the next morning." The police officer wrote down Mr. Bin's statement in his notebook, then paused and asked, "I heard someone say Chien was planning to sell his house. Is that right?" "Yes, I was planning to ask him about buying his house for my daughter when he was murdered." "So, before you went into the house, when you walked from your house to Chien's house, did you see anyone leaving the house?" Mr. Bin suddenly remembered. "Oh, yes, I forgot. When I opened Chien's door, I saw 2 young men speeding past his house. They were coming from the direction of Chien's house. They were masked." The investigating police officer lowered his head, wrote it down in his notebook, then looked up and asked, "So, there are no clues then? Thank you for providing information to assist. If you have any more information about the case, please call the precinct police to let us know. I have to go now. Otherwise, we would talk to you more." "No problem. I just hope you can catch the culprit for Chien," Mr. Bin said, implying to the police officer that Chien was involved in some past crime, but he couldn't imagine how serious the crime Chien had committed was. Day after day, Mr. Bin always wanted to help Chien turn away from his past and escape the haunting of his guilt, hoping that Chien would confess to the law and receive leniency. But before he could do that, Chien was brutally murdered. Many times, Mr. Bin witnessed Chien screaming in his dreams. Once, in a dream, Chien vaguely admitted that he was the mastermind behind a murder at a restaurant on Tin Street. On a morning after Chien was murdered, Chien is dead. The man named Tin, who was engrossed in his phone, was startled when his henchman informed him of Chien's death. "What, did you say Chien is dead?" "Yes, I didn't mishear. He's dead. He was murdered right in his house." Tin was silent for a few minutes, then said, "Someone is targeting me, right? What do you mean? How does Chien's death concern you, boss? Chien and I were sworn enemies. Now that he's been killed, the police will suspect and investigate me and you, do you understand? This timing is very crucial. If the police come looking for us, it'll ruin all my business." Tin's henchman laughed and said, "You're overthinking it, boss. You and Chien made peace a long time ago. You haven't seen him since the time you met Chien to reconcile and divide your territory. The police won't suspect you. Don't worry, boss." Tin still looked worried. He clenched his fists. "Damn it. Chien or anyone else, I'm always under police surveillance. During this time, whatever you do, be careful not to cause any more trouble for me." Chien was a notorious gangster. His death made many gang leaders in the area restless, including Tin. Indeed, just as Tin worried, among the names the police considered suspects was Tin, because Chien and Tin had a long-standing feud that lasted for many years until both sides sat down to negotiate, and the situation calmed down. While Chien was alive, he was aggressive and reckless. However, everyone has a weakness, and Chien was afraid of ghosts. Everyone knew this. For that reason, many of Chien's enemies had thought of haunting him to scare him, but thinking about it was one thing, doing it was another. Haunting someone like Chien was not simple. If successful, that was one thing, but if it failed, the consequences were dire. At a roadside stall, two men, one old and one young, heard that Chien was dead. The young man immediately replied, "He died of fright, teacher." The man referred to as teacher smiled grimly. That's how it should be for a person like that. He hadn't even finished atoning for his sins yet. The young man asked, "Teacher, you are truly clever, aren't you, Teacher Tan?" The man called Teacher Tan replied, "It's not just luck." If that Chien hadn't harmed Mr. Cuong's family, I might have helped him become the most powerful man in this area. Unfortunately, he was a cruel man, not sparing even the old and the young. Such a person is a great danger to many. The young man nodded and replied, "I have to admit, no one is as capable as you, teacher. That day, you and I met Chien's two assassins who went to murder Mr. Cuong's entire family in Cambodia." Teacher Tan immediately recognized one of the two as Chien's henchmen. Teacher Tan smiled. "If we hadn't been lucky enough to meet them that day, I might not have been able to avenge Cuong. Anyway, Chien is dead. This revenge is considered complete, but didn't we go a bit too hard on him, quit?" The young man replied decisively, "No, teacher. As I said, they didn't beg for mercy, and they died silently. If he hadn't harmed Mr. Cuong, he would have been a good man. But for the Cuong family's life, his life is too small a price for those he harmed." Teacher Tan sighed. "It's just karma, and don't call me teacher anymore. It's grating on my ears. I'm not practicing anymore. If you keep calling me that, outsiders will think I'm doing something wrong." Just then, over a dozen people suddenly appeared, their eyes fixed on Tan and Quit. Both realized that the people approaching them were plainclothes police officers. They couldn't escape and had to surrender, putting their hands in handcuffs. Quit, who directly killed Chien, was a dangerous individual with a long criminal record. The police had struggled to track him down. That day, according to Mr. Bin's testimony, one of the two people on the motorbike speeding away from the scene was Quit. Quit confessed to killing Chien by himself and that the man he called Teacher Tan was not involved. Tan was released after it was confirmed that he had no involvement in Chien's death. Before letting him go, Quit gave Tan a piece of paper with the following message: "Chien deserved to die, but I also committed a crime by killing him. Please help me with 4 things. Withdraw the money from my bank account and bring it to my mother in my hometown. Don't tell her about me. Thank you, uncle." Tan sighed and took the bank card to an open bank to withdraw the money. He carried Quit's money to his hometown. Quit's family's small house was located in a poor village more than a 3-hour drive from the city. Upon reaching the village entrance, Tan got off the car and walked into the village. He asked the villagers and learned where Quit's house was. Quit's mother saw a stranger standing outside and quickly approached him. "Who are you looking for, sir? Is this Quit's house?" "Yes, it is. I'm Tan, his friend. Quit is busy with some work in the city and couldn't come home. He asked me to deliver this money to you." "So, did he say when he'll be back?" "He's very busy, just take this money. He wants you to fix the house and treat your illness. I have to go now. I'll visit another time," he said and left. On the highway, waiting for a bus, Tan thought of Quit, a ruthless assassin who was very filial to his mother. Perhaps avenging Mr. Cuong's family was something Quit considered meaningful in his life. However, every crime has its price. Even Tan was committing a crime by making Chien's 2 assassins die of fear. The deaths of those 2 assassins were also the first time Tan had used black magic to harm people. That was also a crime, and the day he had to pay the price for his crime would also come soon. Quit was imprisoned, awaiting trial and sentencing. In the dark cell, he thought back on what he had done and felt guilty for not being able to take care of his mother, the mother who loved him so much and wanted the best for his life. The money Quit asked Tan to bring to his mother was enough for her to live out the rest of her life, but she would be heartbroken when she received news from the police about his death. After receiving the highest sentence, death, when Quit appeared in court, Tan was not present at the trial. At the end of the trial, after a life sentence was handed down, it was like a miracle for Quit. In his hopeless eyes, a glimmer of hope appeared, which made Tan truly happy, because Quit would have a chance to return. On the anniversary of Mr. Cuong's family's death, Tan went to their graves, lighting incense on the closely arranged tombstones. After a glass of wine placed on Mr. Cuong's grave, Tan said, "My friend, I have avenged you. Quit and I have done it. Did you help him escape death then? I hope this time, if Quit can come home, he can change and live a normal life as he wishes. As for me, my cancer is in its final stage now, my friend. Perhaps tomorrow or the day after, I will come down there to meet you soon. Let's have this drink, my friend." As the rain poured down, Tan stood up, clasped his hands in prayer, and then turned to leave the cemetery. After a deep bow, 10 spirits from Mr. Cuong's family appeared, waving goodbye to Tan, then disappeared. Tan took a taxi back to his home in Hoa Binh. Day after day, he lived a simple life, growing vegetables, raising chickens, and fishing, content for the rest of his short life. One day, the villagers discovered that Tan had died. They held a funeral for him and buried him in the plot of land behind his small house. Quit was released after serving 17 years in prison. Now, the young man's face was deeply lined with wrinkles, and he was no longer young. After 17 years, the outside world had changed so much. He returned to his hometown to his elderly mother. Seeing Quit, she was overjoyed to the point of tears and cried. The two mother and son embraced. Quit stayed at home with his mother for a few months, then set off on a bus to Hoa Binh to visit Tan. Upon arriving, Quit stood silently before the grave located in the small garden that Tan had once mentioned, saying he wished to be buried there if he died. Quit chuckled. "Are you planning to live here forever, or what? You're healthy, why talk about death? Today I brought some good wine. Let's drink until we're thoroughly drunk. No, not being drunk?" This joyful memory lingered in Quit's mind. He and Tan had gone to Cambodia together to track down the 2 assassins who Chien had sent to murder Mr. Cuong's family. Step by step, they made Chien pay, but in the end, Tan couldn't stop Quit from killing Chien, which Quit considered a righteous act. Quit sat down next to Tan's grave and cried like a child. Many times, he wanted to adopt Tan as his foster father, but he never had the chance. Quit went to see an acquaintance named Hoch, who lived not far from Tan's house. As he entered the yard, Mr. Hoch, a man in his 60s, chuckled and said, "My goodness, isn't this Quit? Are you here to visit Mr. Tan?" "Yes, sir. I came to visit him this time, but it's too late. I couldn't see him one last time. I want to build a tomb for Mr. Tan. Can you help me find some workers? I'll pay for the labor in full." "You don't need to worry about that. I'll call people to build his tomb, so how long will you stay here?" "I'll stay until the tomb is finished, then I'll leave." "Then you should stay at my house. My wife and children are in the city now, so I'm all alone at home and very bored. It would be nice to have you stay with me. So you'll stay at my house, right?" Quit nodded, a faint smile on his face. "In that case, I'll be happy to. We're not strangers. You and I feel free to treat my house as your own. Don't be formal." That day, Mr. Hoch killed a chicken and made a meal for Quit. They sipped wine. Before 9 p.m., 2 men came in from outside. As soon as they saw Mr. Hoch, they waved and said, "Hey, uncle, are these the guests you mentioned?" One of them approached and asked, "Uncle, what did you call us for?" "I want to hire you to build a tomb for Mr. Tan. This is Quit. You don't need to worry about money. Quit will pay you in full." After the meal, Mr. Hoch led the workers to Tan's grave. Mr. Hoch pointed to the grave and said, "This is my friend's grave. Tomorrow, if you need anything else, just tell me, and I'll give you the money immediately. Money is not an issue. The important thing is to build a beautiful tomb, young men." "We understand, uncle. Don't worry. Now, if you'll excuse us, we'll come early tomorrow morning." The next morning, the workers arrived at Mr. Hoch's house and began building Tan's tomb. It took over a week, but Tan's tomb was beautifully constructed. Quit paid the workers their full wages. Mr. Hoch then asked Quit, "What are you planning to do with Mr. Tan's house now? Or, since you have the workers here, why don't you have them renovate it? Then you'll have a place to stay when you come back here." "I was actually thinking of doing that. But this time, I only came back to build a proper tomb for Tan. I'll renovate the house later so I have a place to rest whenever I come to visit his grave." "That's right. It's better to renovate it now than to leave it in disrepair." Quit had the workers renovate the house. After the house was completed, Quit said goodbye to Mr. Hoch and went back to take care of his mother because she had called, informing him that her illness had relapsed. Hearing the news of his mother's illness, Quit immediately took a bus home. When he arrived home, his mother was lying in bed, sick. During her illness, Quiet took very good care of her, staying by her side day and night. Not long after, Quiet's mother passed away. Quiet stayed home to arrange her funeral. After she was buried and the grave was peaceful and beautiful, he sold the house. With the money from selling the house, Quiet went to live in Mr. Tan's house in Hoa Bin. He married a village girl, and they lived there together until today.